Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to show you how you could take this little guy right here and make a beautiful puree so that you could make pumpkin breads, pies, cookies, even a pumpkin risotto if you really want to. Today, we're going to be working on the pumpkin. Now, this pumpkin here is a small pie pumpkin. These pumpkins are small, they run a few bucks, and they are packed full of flavor. Now, we're going to use this pumpkin so that we can make a pumpkin puree, and through that pumpkin puree, we will be able to make pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie, pumpkin cheesecake, pumpkin cookies, anything really that involves pumpkin. Now, your alternative to this, if you cannot find a small pie pumpkin like this, is going to be your canned pumpkin. Now, I take an issue with canned pumpkin. Why? Because right here it says 100% pure pumpkin. But I can tell you right now, when I open this can up and I show you the pumpkin puree inside this can, it's not going to be the same color as the pumpkin. In fact, it's going to be darker in color, and there's a reason for that. A natural pumpkin puree is going to be light in color. It's actually going to look sort of yellow, okay? And that's okay because that's pure, raw, orange pumpkin flavor. So why would this one be orange? Well, because the FDA is very lenient on what it considers to be a pumpkin. So while it says 100% pure pumpkin, it's not exactly wrong, but it's probably most likely not one of these, okay? It's probably a variety of winter squash, which according to the FDA could be classed as a pumpkin. So let's stop talking about canned pumpkins and let's get started. All right, so to get started, we're going to need a small glass bowl. Now this bowl is where we're going to put all of our guts in. Let's go ahead and pull that off to the side. We need a big bowl. This big bowl is going to put all the pumpkin pieces in it. We need our pumpkin, a knife, and a spoon, okay? Now this process here is going to be exactly the same if when you cut open a big pumpkin and you're cutting open a jack-o'-lantern. Oh, and I forgot, we have a big pot of water on the stove right now, and we have it going on a medium heat so that we can get the water boiling. So, how we get around this, take your knife, make sure it's a really sharp knife. This one here is a small, it's like a prep knife. That's what I've always called it, a prep knife. I don't really use this one that often, but when I do, it's usually right around pumpkin time, when pumpkins are in season. So we're going to take our pumpkin, and first we're going to make sure it's not mushy. All right, we're going to give it a couple of squeezes, make sure it's not mushy. All right, mushy is a bad sign. All right, mushy is a sign that your pumpkin's bad. So next, there's really no way of getting around this, okay? All we're going to do is we are going to cut into the pumpkin. You don't have to be perfect. Now this will be your first official look into the pumpkin. Haha, there we have our seeds and our guts. Now the seeds and the guts are all going to go inside this glass bowl here. And as they go inside the glass bowl, what you do with the seeds then, my wife, she likes to coat them and bake them and then snack on them, which is fine. You could totally do that. So to get the guts and the seeds off, take your spoon and you're just going to scrape it just like that. Next, just take it, throw it into your bowl. And move on. Now, if we were going to be using this pumpkin to carve, say, a jack-o'-lantern into it, we totally can. But what we want to do is we want to get all the guts out. So we're not really concerned about how we get the guts out, okay? We just want to get the guts out. So what we're going to do next is we are going to cut the pumpkin all the way down. Now we have 4/4 of our pumpkin. So just like before with the top and the spoon, we are going to basically scrape everything out. You don't want any of the stringy sides. Let's get it all out of there. Everything into your bowl. We're going to move this over to our big bowl, and we are going to proceed and do the exact same thing with the other quarters. Next, we're going to cut the bottom piece off. We don't need it. Now we have our 4/4 of the pumpkin here. And now we have to take the flesh off, or the skin. So to take the flesh off, it's best to do it in large chunks, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to take a potato peeler and just peel it off. Take your shavings, discard them. And you're going to take this one here and just going to cut it right in half. And these two will go inside a pot of water. And you're going to repeat the process for the rest of your cut pumpkin. And now we have our pumpkin in the pot. Now, your pumpkin's going to sit here in the pot of water. I understand I got a lot more water than I really need, and that's okay because I actually have another pumpkin I'm going to cut up. I'm just not going to cut it up right now. But you're going to have your pumpkin in the water, and it's going to sit in the water until you can push or drop a knife right through the pumpkin and it goes through without a problem. Similar to how you cook up some potatoes. Okay, so once the knife or the fork can push right through without any problem, all right, then our pumpkin is done, and then we can move to the next step of making our pumpkin puree. All right, so we'll turn the heat off, remove our lid, and we take our pumpkin And I don't even have to push. It goes right in. So that's what we want. So now we are going to transfer the pumpkin into our blender. Now it's okay if some of the water gets into the blender as well with the pumpkin, because it's going to help it puree. So we look at our blender here. We have a completely full, right? So now we'll take our lid and then we will turn it on and we'll hit puree. And we're going to let it do its thing. All right, so now that it's done, on the first round, we will check the puree. It's got a nice, good, thick consistency to it. We're going to go ahead and run this one more time on the puree section of the blender, just to make sure it is good, thoroughly pureed. All right, so 2 passes on the puree section, or the puree button on the blender, and we have a nice, good, consistent puree. So what we'll do is we'll remove the blade. Get all that puree down. Careful, it's really, really hot. I will show you a natural pumpkin puree. So here we have our natural pumpkin puree. This is a pure puree from a pumpkin, and I'm going to show you the difference here between the pumpkin puree, which comes from a pie pumpkin, to the canned pumpkin, which this one comes from Libby's. To get open the can of pumpkin puree, we are going to use a can opener. And this is a pumpkin puree from can. So this is the puree from the can. This is a puree from a pumpkin. Now what you can do with the canned pumpkin is, obviously you can use it. It's not bad. Honestly, it tastes pretty good. I mean, it tastes exactly like pumpkin pie. I won't lie to you. But you can use this to make, you know, whatever you want to make, or you can use a natural pumpkin puree. Now, if you're going to store the pumpkin puree that you have a couple options. You can put it into a Ziploc bag, a freezer Ziploc bag, okay, similar to this one, all right. And if you do that, you want to put down the date that you put on there and you stick it in the freezer. And as soon as you do that, you'll have pumpkin puree that you can use whenever it doesn't expire, and it can keep in your freezer, and then you will have puree to make anything that you want to make at any time of the year. And you don't have to wait for canned pumpkin to come out, and you don't have to wait for pie pumpkins to come out onto the shelves. So this is how you make your pumpkin puree. Again, it's very simple, it's very easy, it's very bright, it's sort of yellowish in color, right? It's got a ton of flavor to it compared to the canned. So I hope you did enjoy this video. Follow me next week. Next week I'll be making pumpkin bread. It is a family favorite in my family. I have a family recipe that I picked up from my dad, and my dad picked it up from his mom, which would be my grandma. And I'm going to show you how to make that pumpkin bread next week. So stay tuned next week. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe, ring that little notification bell. Please follow along. I update videos, or at least I try to update videos every week. And I hope to see you next week.